Hello and good afternoon, and welcome to today's live session. I'm really excited to be chatting with Michael Keenan, a longtime friend of mine, content and SEO strategist. We're talking about refreshing content, and I think there's a ton that we can learn from Michael and the work that he does and his process and the way he's applied it to many different companies, especially in the tech, SaaS, and B2B space. So we're gonna get into that in just a moment, but as always, I want to do a couple quick shout outs here before we bring Michael on. First and foremost, if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, would definitely encourage you to do that. Hit the subscribe button. We host these sessions, live interviews, as well as workshops and other informational stuff around content marketing, SEO, marketing in general, growth, all those great topics. Every couple of weeks we have a new session, so hit subscribe and make sure you stay up to date on all of our upcoming streams. In addition, please like this video. That will help us to with the SEO on YouTube and the algorithms and all that fun stuff that us marketers get to deal with. And just one final plug here is, if you're not already a member of our group, top of the funnel, we have all kinds of exclusive content that we share inside the group. It's a free Slack community. It doesn't cost anything to join. It's for in-house marketers, agencies, freelancers, all kinds of folks. So if you're into content marketing, SEO, if you're a freelance writer or you're trying to level up as a marketer, please join us there. You can find the group at yesoptimist.com/tofu, TOFU. Again, it's a free group. So yeah, we'd love to have you on. Okay, well, without further ado, as I mentioned, so joining us today is our guest, Michael Keenan. He's a content and SEO consultant. He works with brands like Shopify, ManyChat, Help Scout, and more. Since him and I first met a few years back, he has really found a niche, kind of focusing on something that I think too many of us content marketers overlook, which is updating, repurposing, refreshing content, right? So even big brands like Shopify need help with this. And in the past, they've hired Michael to come in, fix up old, outdated, underperforming content. And he's been able to do some pretty astounding things, honestly. The case study that we used here, driving 629% increase in organic traffic to an existing piece. So today we're going to be learning about his approach to refreshing and optimizing content. We're going to learn about his specific processes and frameworks. And plus, we're going to dig into some of the critical considerations that go into this kind of work. So content decay, search intent, tactical content placement, and more. So with that said, let's kick things off. I'm going to bring on Michael now. Hey, welcome, Michael. Thanks again for your time today.
Yeah, hey, Tyler. Thanks for having me. And hello to everyone who is in the Top Funnel community and all of anyone who's joined from anywhere else on the web. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to come and chat about content refreshing for a little bit. It's something that I really love to do.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, thanks again. And yeah, just for anyone who's joined the stream, you feel free to toss questions into the chat. We can't see them here, so we'll try to get to any questions if we have time at the end. But just yeah, feel free to toss those in. Michael, I want to just start at the very beginning. So take me all the way back to like how did you even get kind of roped into this world of refreshing content? How did you first get hired for this kind of work?
Yeah, so it's an interesting start. So I started out like most freelance writers, right? So I was writing content for, ghostwriting for content mills and random brands that I don't even know if they're still in existence anymore. And eventually I found my niche after a couple of years in B2B SaaS. So lo and behold, the competition for B2B SaaS writers has gotten like nuts. And it was getting bigger, come like 2019, 2020 rolled around. There was a lot of, B2B freelance writers, and B2B companies were hiring a lot of new writers because, everyone was moving online, and content, as if it wasn't big before, it only got bigger, right?
Right.
I didn't know any freelance writers who didn't have like writing work at that point. So it started actually with my friend, so Jess Green, who's now the SEO strategist at Help Scout, right? I'm sure if you're familiar with her, I got interested in reading one of her blogs about content refreshing. and her and I were friends. So she actually had taught me before she left us and went to, the in-house role. She taught me her like framework and strategy, and that was like end of 2019, maybe like October, November, around there, whatnot. And that's really how I got into content refreshing. And then from there, I kind of like developed my own processes for it. And then she actually ended up hiring me at Help Scout to do the content refreshing for them for a little bit during 2020. So that was simply, it was part interest, because I'm always looking to like how I can add service, like different service offerings on top of like consulting packages or writing net new content. And it was also a strategic move because there was not a lot of people doing it at the time.
Yeah, super interesting. Small world. Yeah, we worked briefly with Jess Green at a couple different places, and actually tried to hire her for Optimist at one point. I think it was right when she was like transitioning from out of Freelancer or something like that. But
yeah, she's an amazing woman. She's a very talented SEO strategist. I'm very fortunate to have learned what I learned from her. So,
that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so let's set the stage then for everyone who's joining. So, I'm a marketer. I've got, I don't know, 1 billion items in my backlog of new content that I want to make. Why should I take some of my precious time and spend it refreshing or updating old content?
Yeah, so it's funny that you bring up precious time, right? Because in any editorial program, content takes time, right? So writing net new content, say you pour time and money into writers, subject matter experts, editors, design. You're pouring a lot of precious time and energy into those pieces of content to begin with. And what happens when it doesn't perform? When it doesn't perform how you want it to perform, and very, very often, more often than not, do companies publish a blog and then it maybe reaches, page 3 or page 2 or page 4, even whatever. It doesn't reach that page 1 mark. It doesn't reach those target keywords that they're going after. And because we don't ever look back, as marketers, we're always looking forward. And especially with content, we're always trying to produce new content. But there's so much potential in that content that you have already made. You may have backlinks to it already. You're already preceded for maybe some of the target or the long tail variation keywords that you're going after. So if you come in and you do a nice refresh on it, the chances are you're going to see a good bump, whether it's all the way to page 1, whether maybe it's position 11, you're like sneaking in there a little bit, but you're going to see that bump rather than saying like, I'm just going to delete this garbage and I'm going to rewrite a whole new post. So I'm just going to try and go after it from another angle with another post, so, and that's really where the value of content refreshing is. And that's why, in some of the narrative that we were using before this site was like, your content is dying.
Right.
And what are you going to revive it? Like, why let your precious time and money go to waste?
And is that usually what you're seeing, is that the content like was performing and has like since stopped, or is it more common that that content just like never really was performing?
Yeah, that's a good question. And there are a few reasons why you're going to refresh content. And one of them is the clear and obvious one, right? So maybe you were performing really well. You had the snippet, or you had position 2, and slowly you're going to see that content decay, which we'll get onto in a minute. But you're going to see that kind of like drop in your search ranking. So instead of like freaking out and being like, what the hell are we supposed to do? It's like, well, let's go back and see why. Like, what's the reason that it slipped?
Right.
Did the search intent change, or did we, did some new keywords pop up? Like, what's the reason? But there are, like we said, because we don't ever look back, there are cases where you're just like, you never got to page 1. And you're just like, well, let's only focus our efforts on like getting this new content to page 1. Right. And so one of the first things I do when I'm going in for any type of content refresh audit, before we even get into what URLs we're going to refresh, is simple. What URLs are on page 2 and 3? Let's start there. Let's start there. Let's get those back up to speed and kind of get them re-indexed into Google, so you can start to see those rankings, and then we'll start picking through other pieces of content. The other reason is just sometimes people have blog posts from like 2015, and even if it's ranking well, which in some cases it does, in some cases you'll find like a post from 2015 that's ranking for, you know, a 290 volume keyword on like position 2, but you're like, I don't know why or how, but we should just refresh this because it creates a good user experience. So
Right.
to kind of cap it up, it's like declining search rankings, page 2 or 3, and if you just want to create a better reader experience.
Right. Yeah. Which I think that's sort of the meta conversation around so much of what we're doing now as content marketing and SEO folks, right? It's like, it's about serving the user, and it's really about thinking through the algorithm to like the actual human elements of like, and that's what's going to steer like a smart strategy, I think, in a lot of ways.
For sure. And that's one of the things that Google seems to be recognizing is when something is formatted well, when something is done in depth, right? Because we write content differently in 2021 than we did even in 2018. You know, the way that we format things, the type of information that we include, the internal linking that we do, you know, it's a lot different than the landscape was only a couple of years ago.
Right. Yep. It's amazing when you look back and think about it, or sometimes you'll be doing your own research and you'll come across an article from 2018 and it really shows its age.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, there are the sites, like there are the word streams who are still able to get away with that. But I think anyone that's getting into content now is not going to be able to swing that, you know, or anyone that doesn't have a huge SEO presence yet can't swing those. Right. And the last reason why and this is like the organization's secret, right? Like this is what the content managers, why they refresh content, is because it gets results to stakeholders faster. You can show your C-suite that, yes, like, no, it's not taking 3 months to rank this brand new article. You know, we're putting money into this because this is getting us results faster. So that has been one of the biggest benefits for organizations and content managers, editorial managers, is that it's an upsell to get more buy-in for your content program, and more specifically content refreshing, but to show that content is working in the organization.
Yeah. I think just as an industry or as a discipline, like I think the other big trend or macro trend I'm seeing is like slowly people are realizing that we really have to shift our mindset. Like I think many people still come into content marketing from sort of the thinking of like editorial, right? Where it's like, you know, new newspaper goes out every day or new magazine every month or whatever, but it's like, that's not what it is, right? Every piece of content that we create really should be more of an asset, right? Like it's as you said, it's an investment. We're spending all this time, we're spending all this money making something, and the smart marketers aren't going to treat that like a thing that's done and they just move on. It's something that they now own and they possess that content, and they're going to get as much value for as long as they possibly can out of that asset, right?
For sure. Again, coming back around to the precious time, that's where your precious time needs to be, is, you know. And that's one of the things I loved about your approach early on, because I had read the Optimist blog before I even stalked you on Twitter and then wanted to forced you to become my friend. One of the things that I noticed was that you talked very much about that idea of, you know, maintaining the evergreen content and like making sure that it's not just something that you're just doing for the sake of doing it. You know, we're doing it because we want specific results from these things. We want leads. We want search traffic. We want people to, you know, have a good impression of our brand when they come onto a piece of content, whether, you know, it was published anytime it was published, you know?
Yep. 1,000%. I don't even, it's sort of frustrating and kind of mind boggling to me that there's like even a tension there of like, you know, people not wanting to invest time in again, going back and refreshing content. It's like, you wouldn't just like let your house fall apart, like, right? Like you maintain your home, like anytime you're making a big investment in something, like you should be investing also in the maintenance and upkeep and all that stuff. But anyway, yeah. I digress.
That's a great analogy. Actually, I may use that from now on. I've never used it like that. Maybe because I don't own a home, so that's probably why. Right. I'm still in an apartment.
For sure. Cool. So you mentioned this concept of content decay, and I want to dive a little deeper into that. So just to set the stage here, how do you kind of define the concept of content decay?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the idea of content decay, in its simplest form, is just over time, no matter where you're ranking, your content is gonna take a hit from a search perspective, from a visibility perspective. And it can take a hit for any number of reasons, right? It can take a hit because say you did a roundup of like the best tools, maybe Google, instead of ranking those roundup posts, they started ranking the actual tools themselves. Like, and that's over time, it doesn't happen overnight, but over time, like you just see that content start to drift off. You see content competitors coming in and trying to up your content, right? We all remember the skyscraper technique. So it's that same idea, but only it's not just with skyscrapers anymore. It's with how-tos, it's with expanded definition articles, it's with beginner's guides. It doesn't matter what it is. That's the idea of content decay. Like you can't just leave your content sitting on the SERP, no matter where you're ranking. If you're 1, 2, 3, over time, it's going to decrease in ranking. And partially is also because we all know the idea of Google loves new content. Google prioritizes new content. Maybe Google's not like marrying new content. It's not like getting down on one knee and asking with a ring, but it's definitely, you can see that it is looking towards the people who are refreshing their content, or at least like the newer articles that, maybe working their way up the ranks. Those are the types of things that they are going to go after. They want new, they want relevant, they want fresh.
Yeah. I think it's super interesting because I think it sort of gets to the heart of the concept that search is evolving, right? And it's responding to human things, right? Again, the human element of SEO is that Google's algorithm is being trained by individual people doing these queries and then clicking on the things that best match their needs, right? And so, As you said, that is going to change over time, right? Like my understanding or my needs around a certain topic may evolve as a user, and that's actually going to be reflected then in the search results, which is super fascinating to me. And then the other interesting thing too is like that just gets the other point, which is like it's a huge competitive advantage, right? Like you have this opportunity. I think a lot of other people think about like, I'm never going to rank for this term because Shopify is number 1 or whatever. But it's like, well, if you have a smart strategy, like you can, those guys are not going to sit at number 1 forever all the time.
Yeah.
You do have an opportunity to sort of use this approach of refreshing content and creating newer content and that kind of thing to inject yourself into some of those more competitive queries.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one thing that I've noticed more recently, since I noticed it, is you're even seeing, so when they introduced the top stories snippet, for mostly you'd see it for like news articles, like the latest groundbreaking news, like it has to be on the SERP page. But now you're starting to see that on mobile for marketing articles, right? Like your standard marketing articles are starting to have these like they're starting to hit top story snippets. So that again, like just tells you like, all right, like a top story isn't going to come from 2018 if we're talking about, e-commerce marketing in 2021, right? Like there are so many new concepts in e-commerce marketing alone that one can talk about in an article that you're not going to find in a 2018 article because the landscape has changed just incredibly, and this concept of content decay does not apply to, it applies to everyone. That's the way I should phrase it. It applies to everyone. It doesn't matter, because even if you take a look from the public facing data, obviously, because we don't have, your Ahrefs, your SEMrush, if you look at some of those top performing blogs from a couple of years ago, you'll see the organic decrease in there. And we've looked at it before, and I'm not going to name the blogs, but if if you've been around marketing and sales for a while, take a look at some of these like landmark blogs that have been around forever that may have not been updating their content. It still has like old information, 404 links, data from 2015 linking out to it. And some of these blogs are actually seeing from, again, our public facing data that you can find is that's that idea of content day. If you just leave it, over time, it has a diminishing return of value. Content has a diminishing return of value. So that's that idea of content decay, and content refreshing is really the only way to combat that.
Right. Yeah, that makes tons of sense. Are there certain types or like formats? You mentioned a couple of examples. Like tools or like year posts or things like that, like, do you see any patterns there in terms of the types of content that need to be updated or refreshed?
To be honest, no. The clients I work with, we refresh everything under the sun. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a how-to. It doesn't matter if it is, like you said, an expanded definition. You can do guest posts even, right? Like, granted, the legal aspect of giving the byline to the new writer, whatever, that's outside of this conversation. But you can still refresh those old posts also. There is no limit, because the SERPs don't see like, okay, let's just focus on how-tos now. They're going across and they're knocking down everyone. It doesn't matter what type of article it is. they're not in it to help you win it. They're in it to they want you to put money into Google somehow, whatever. But they want to see you bust an ass so you can get on that SERP page. You're not just gonna get there by leaving your content there. But yeah, there really is none. I've refreshed all different types of content, and there hasn't been a case where one got more than another. You can refresh a photography guide, you can refresh like a how to build a chatbot article. It doesn't matter. Customer acquisition. There's always new content that you can add to an article.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and again, it's just like if you think about it just logically, there's so many obvious examples of like content that it just becomes irrelevant over time. Like, it's not true anymore, or it doesn't hold. It makes sense that you would have to refresh it, right? Like, you would have to update it.
For sure. And this is the like, we go back to the readership, is when you are online and you are looking at articles and you come across one and you get pissed that you even got pushed towards that art. You're like, this article sucks. Like, it is so old. Like, maybe if you're like, this article, none of this information I can use. Like, it's from 2017. It creates such a poor reader experience that, again, outside of SEO benefits, is that benefit of creating a good first impression on people if they come from another article on your site, or they come from social media, or they come from an ad. I mean, maybe you wouldn't be running ads to 2015 blog posts, but the point being, you never know. The point being is that it helps create a better user experience for your entire blog outside of the SEO benefits.
Yeah. Cool. So all right. So let's say the world is our oyster. All the content out there is just primed to be refreshed. How do you sort of identify the pieces, or maybe prioritize is the best word there, the pieces that you want to refresh?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you can look at it, to put it in simple, you can look at it in like 3 phrases, right? So the first pieces that you want to look at are those that are decaying from high search volume. So maybe you were ranking for 60,000, volume, 40,000 volume, 250,000 volume. If you're seeing content decay in those areas, you definitely want to get on that. You don't want to lose those clicks. You don't want to lose that visibility on those SERP pages. So the first thing you can look for is that, like, all right, what are my highest ranking keywords? Where were we ranking 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 12 months ago, and where are we now? And if you're from position 3 to position 8, that's a big percentage of clicks that you're losing. So you definitely want to go after those types of articles first. The second ones that I would go after are anything, as we had mentioned before, anything that's on page 2, and I would even extend it out arbitrarily to page 3, just because like you do have potential. You may need to do 2 refreshes just in case. But I would say page 2 keywords are prime URLs for a content refresh. Like, that's just saying, like, Google's like, all right, come on, your content's almost there, like just a little bit further and you can get it. And you're just like sitting there, you're like, no, whatever, page 2 is fine. No, it's not fine. Page 2 is not fine. That's why you want to refresh your content on page 2. All right. Yeah. And one better is if you don't have the snippet feature. This is kind of like a sub, genre, have you call it, whatever, of that is like, if you're on page 1 and you don't have the snippet, get in there and try and get the snippet. Because for example, and I know people might hate this because, like, we're all over optimizing the shit out of these articles with what is and the importance of blah, 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 blah. Look, we all know it exists, right? But I'm here to make my clients, get them traffic, get them leads and make them money and write them good content. So that those are my goals, and my goals, they all fit with getting into the snippet features. So if you are on page 1, be it, even if you're in position 4, 5, 6, and you're not in that snippet feature, you bet your ass you're getting back into that article, and you're going to figure out how to get that snippet feature. So again, that's like the sub genre, and then the last piece of pieces of content that you can identify would be kind of the articles that never made it. Like for whatever reason, you're like, why did this not perform? I have no idea why. So take, like, again, precious time went into that article, even though it's like you're like the bastard child, but you still love that child, and you wanna give it a chance. So content refreshing lets you go back, and it lets you give like the nobodies a chance. So that's kind of like that would be like the third one, and that again falls into like those like super old 2015, 2014. And also just as we're talking about like what to identify, I do just want to like make the disclaimer here that it is okay to delete content off your blog. Not everything needs to be refreshed. If we're talking, it's okay to delete URLs. And I have experience with deleting, upward of 400 URLs from a blog just because it was gone. And but what we did was we moved like the content maybe from those URLs into bigger pieces of content. So taking all of that information and then bringing it into one piece that was more targeted, more relevant, and more meaningful for readers, instead of like trying to refresh 5,000 pieces of content. It's like, just delete some of those URLs. It's okay. I'm not saying delete them all, but I'm saying it's okay if you're like, this really doesn't have anything, get rid of it.
Right. Well, that was actually going to be my follow-up, is like, is there a point, hey, this thing ranks number 58, like it's a lost cause, like just cut it. Or maybe a better way to phrase that question is like, how do you know when there's content that's not worth refreshing? Or you should, well, maybe it's not even that it's not worth refreshing, but it's like that it's better used in a different way, perhaps. Yeah,
that's a good question. So again, if you're ranking 58, that sucks for your piece of content, but what's the head term that you're going after? Again, these are like the lower priority ones. What we already talked about should be the main focus if you're just starting to run a content refresh program in your organization. But if you're in position 58 and that keyword is, 250,000 hits a month, like maybe not a bad idea to get in there and like figure out what the hell happened, and like try and like work to get that to a better place. It's really hard to say what you should just let go of because it's very specific to the organization, right? Like maybe their strategy has shifted since 2016. Like they don't even talk about these topics anymore. Yeah. Get rid of them. Maybe they were using like less, maybe they didn't have a well-respected, what's the word? Maybe they were hiring less like cheaper writers back then and the content is just garbage. Get rid of it. Those are things that are okay to get rid of. If it doesn't match your brand anymore, if it's just so terrible, it's not even worth like fixing it. Just get rid of it. Just make sure if you're going to get rid of those things, just make sure that they don't have like a lot of referring domains, because some blogs, especially enterprise blogs, will find that some of those 2015, 2016 pieces of content actually have backlinks from big domains. In those cases, then you're going to be like, all right, how can we make an article out of this piece of garbage? But that piece of garbage has some valuable linking to it that you don't want to get rid of. So make sure if you do go to delete those pieces, they don't have referring domains, and if they have them, make sure they're not good, right? You don't want to get rid of a link from the New York Times. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't matter if you got the link in 2009 or if you have it now. You want that link.
That's awesome. Okay, so my next question was going to be about the specific goals, and you kind of covered this. So let me see if I got this right. So when you're thinking about refreshing a piece of content, it sounds like you have kind of three primary goals. One is move from page 2 or possibly page 3 onto page 1. Second goal might be to move up on page 1, so move from position 8 to position 2, and then the third goal is the featured snippet. Are there any other specific goals that you're setting out to achieve generally when you think about refreshing content?
Definitely, and obviously, again, every organization has an SEO goal, but it's attached to a business outcome, be it leads or email signups or free trial signups, whatever your business is. So outside of when I'm looking at, my main objectives are those things, but from like a more higher level, maybe if you need to upsell it, I want more traffic. I want to know, is my traffic sticking around, right? Like how much of the articles are they reading? Are they, engaging with our stuff? Are they watching the videos on there? And that obviously depends if you use like Wisty or not, sorry. But is my traffic sticking around? Am I getting leads from this refresh? And are these leads becoming customers, right? Like those, so right. The best thing about like content refreshing as a whole is that the objectives are the same as net new content. There's no different, we all want the same things. We want traffic, we want leads, we want money. So that's content refreshing. The objectives are typically in line with whatever the editorial goals are. And that is, as we said, like, how can we make money off of this? Like, how can we make you guys money off of this? Like, what's the plan here?
So you're both sort of optimizing from a search perspective, but then also optimizing from conversion perspective or whatever those other goals might be.
100%. I mean, we can talk about the elements of content refreshing until this hour is up, into beyond that, because inside of that refresh, like we're not, like you said, we're not just doing this for SEO. We're doing this because we want leads. So, so for example, instead of just sticking, say we're refreshing this guide, it's 4,000 words long, 3,500 words, whatever. Instead of just going your traditional route with sticking free trial CTA at the bottom of the blog, like maybe let's work in some different types of upsells or CTAs inside of the blog, like a reading list, a checklist, whatever lead magnets that you're using. How can we put them into this article and place them strategically so that we can get more leads from it? Because not everyone's going to make it to the bottom of the article. That's a fact. That's something that we know, not from refreshing, just from working in content, is that people don't read, right? They're going to scan, they're going to get the information that they need. So where can we put these pieces, how can we get them from that scan into our funnels? And one way to do that when you are refreshing is I'm always looking for new opportunities to, add a different CTA, a different type of CTA, not just a free trial sign up. Join this wait list, product launch coming. I mean, get a discount, which I don't think most of us are in e-commerce here, but if you are, you can try. And then inside of that is like, what types of content can we add that is not text? Can we add videos? And the thing about videos is that they don't always have to be your own videos, because videos are expensive, right? Tyler, you and I have talked about videos before. We know that we know they take a lot of time, they take a lot of resources. So if you don't have the budget for videos, you can still take non-competitor videos from YouTube and embed them in the content to help improve, again, make a better experience on the blog post overall. So that's another thing that I always like do outside of typing, is like, what could we do to make this content cool? Like, who do I need to talk to like, what experts do I need to talk to weigh in on these subjects so I can showcase them and showcase their work and case studies, and what can we do to make the content different and fun and interesting?
Right. Yeah, no, that's a lot of considerations that go into it. I mean, do you kind of have a specific process or a system that you use to kind of, I guess, marry all those various considerations and work through them?
Yeah. So, what's the process for that? So, okay, as with any, well, I'm just trying to like see how I can distill it from my brain out. But again, that process is going to be the same as like writing a net new piece. So whenever I'm going into work on strategy for one URL, be it refresh, new piece, when you're looking at the SERP page, you're going to start looking at like, okay, like what's sticking out on the SERP page? What are the intents? What are the intents? Are we talking to beginners? Do people want like quick and easy? Do people want something else? And then what kind of rich media is on the SERP page, right? Like everything has a people also ask box, so we know that that's a given now. But do they use videos? what brands are on the SERP page, right? That's an important one because especially a lot of us write resource tools. What if a brand is on the SERP page for a target keyword that you're going after, you should probably mention it in your article because Google already knows, Google are already looking at it as an important brand. So it should be something that you're talking about in your article. And then on the side of that, what I'm using to get ideas is keywords everywhere. And that's an easy Chrome plugin. You pay like $10 for 100,000 credits or whatever. And it gives you trending keywords. It gives you related, long tail, and you can pull those in to then see like, all right, like what do I need to put in this article? Because that head term has so many different long tail variants underneath it that gets sucked up into that keyword. And if you look, for example, like if you're looking at the long tail variation SERPs and you're seeing the same URLs ranking across the page, I know that those are topics and those are things that need to be put inside of this big article, in the main article. And then another tool that I use, and I stand by this tool, it has been a game changer. I'm sorry for the marketing jargon here, but it has been the game changer for refreshing content because it helps you find the gaps. But now ClearScope, which is my go-to tool for refreshing content, they now have a research portal inside of the UI, inside of the interface where you refresh the content. So it distills all of that information, that manual SERP, like information you have to digest, into this research section. So all you have to do is run the report, and then you look at it and you're like, all right, this is talking about software, it needs tips, it needs this, it needs this. And then you can plan your article based around the research information that they give you and the reports that they give you. So that tools married with like a little manual analysis helps you figure out like what needs to go inside of that article.
Wow. Do you have a checklist or something? How do you do this?
So I don't have a checklist. I have an entire freaking handbook that anyone can which we can talk about at the end of this. But we do Elise Dobson, who's another refreshing queen, and myself, who is also a refreshing queen. We have both created a content refresh handbook that we use it in our group for Peak Freelance, but it's also available to organizations and any content team that wants to refresh content. It walks you through what we're talking about, but the in-depth steps of identifying the content, how to place the concepts throughout your content, formatting, different types. Like again, like you were saying, like what types of content. Elise describes beautifully like how to do it in depth for each different type, listicle, how to, yada yada. So that is like the checklist that is like the checklist, if you want to call it that.
Right.
But one thing that is becoming, and this is I think general like content writing advice, is when you are refreshed. So just as we're talking about ClearScope and a lot of these content optimization tools, a lot of these tools are going to pull like really good information for you, but you always want to be looking at also one thing you want to add in there is what's the expert angle on this? Okay. And that is, and I say this from refreshing content because now like part of the process that I use is sourcing, like sourcing experts, just like you would if you're writing any other type of article. Like, how can we incorporate some expert language into this article? Like, who's the master photographer that I have to talk to? Who's the Instagram influencer that I need to get information from? And working with these people to create better content than what's already out there. Excuse me. Because we all know like the idea now of, I think it was either Ryan Law or Jim Indielli who created the copycat content. Right. So we all like when you're going for those big keywords, you're going for that copycat that like you don't want to create that copycat content. So doing what we're talking about, right? Like adding the rich medias, adding the CTAs, finding new sources, finding fresh people, right? You can use helpab2bwriter.com. It's literally made for B2B writers to source other experts in B2B from e-commerce, marketing, whatever you need. You send an email and then it goes out to their network and you get expert sources back. You can connect with them. You can just take their quotes and use them in your articles or use them as, inspiration to write out what you need. But that, along with, the things that we've been talking about so far, is what's going to help your article get to that #1 spot, because it's going to be different. And again, it's going to create that better experience for people.
Yeah. Yep. That's super fascinating.
I know, I get really excited. Did you notice that? I'm like sweating, man. I'm like, yes, that your fresh content. I can't help it. I just get excited. So
I don't blame you, man. It's an exciting topic.
Honestly, for me, refreshing content has been 100 times more fun and more rewarding than writing net new content. I don't really write new content anymore because of how much I love taking old content and making it better. It's almost like when you do when you have a big task list and you start marking things off, you're like, all right, expert quote, good format, table of contents, like, so it becomes super rewarding. And then when you see the flip side of it, you're like, oh wow, that was a lot easier to get from page 2 to page 1 than getting from page 0. Well, page 0 would be whatever, but getting from page nowhere to page nowhere,
Right, for sure. That's awesome. I want to dive into a couple other specific things that I know. I think you mentioned these in the in this handbook that we're going to be talking about. So the first of all, I want to talk about search intent. So you mentioned this a while back, but how do you think about search intent? Maybe let's preface it with like a quick definition of how we think about search intent, and then how you kind of apply that to the work that you're doing.
Yeah. So again, as we discussed, we said about content decay. Sometimes a big part of that content decay is you're missing the search intent. Maybe before the search intent for how to promote your business was ads, right? Like maybe, and that was a couple of years ago. And now the way that the information people are looking for about promoting your business is not ads, because ads have gotten too expensive. So now they're looking for like lower costs or free ways to do it. So, you have this piece of content. It's, you rank, you've seen the content decay, you used to be #1, it's heavy on ads. When you open up that Google Doc and you put that piece of content in there, I want you to go side by side, right? And look at what the intents are from the article. And you can find search intent, you can get an idea of what search intent is, one from ClearScope, they'll just tell you. Or if you want to do it manually, look at what the title tags on the front page are telling you. Is it a process that someone needs? Is it all expanded definitions? Is it different types of art? Is it different types of business models that they need? Look at through the title tags, easy, free, tutorial, step-by-step, and then look at your article and say, does mine match this? And then if it doesn't, what I like to do is I'll go through the article before I even start writing, because you go in with the plan of like, all right, and I start doing intent matching. So I go, okay, this section is about ads. No one's talking about ads anymore. And especially if we're gonna be talking about low cost, get rid of it. And then maybe you'll see like something about social media, and you go, okay, is this, make comments to yourself. Is this still relevant? And if it isn't, how can we make this section more relevant? Like, how can we make it more 2021? And then I'll start do it, and again, inside of that, like, that's low cost, that's free. If you're doing a how-to, what steps are you missing in that process? Like maybe you're missing one final step that is a necessary step, but for whatever reason, it wasn't placed a couple of years ago or last year, who knows, But so you're gonna start going through and start matching what you have already. And then start taking what you have already in this article and do an intent match. Be like, what intents are the SERP pages telling me I need to optimize for, and where am I missing it in my article? Right. And then from there, then you can start building out the structure of the article, right? So if the intent is definition and types, you already know then, okay, so I need a what is so-so, or how does so-and-so work? And then I need types of so-and-so. And then as you're picking through the SERP page, examples, say, okay, so the SERP is telling me that I need examples. You might have examples in that article that work already. Make sure they're updated, make sure they're still relevant, and then figure out what other examples you can use inside of that article. So and that's where search intent comes into play. And that's the importance of it, is because a lot of articles don't rank because they just, either they're short on certain intents, or they just don't match the search intent at all, which is, it happens. Maybe it's an accident, but it happens,
Yeah, Yeah, and again, I always go back to like search intent is dictated by the searcher, right? Like over time, it is defined by what people are looking for when they search that query, and Google is learning what that is. And so, a great example of this, like we'll see all the time, like how to run Facebook ads, like 9 tips or like whatever. But it's like people don't want 9 tips; they want 10 steps. Like they want the step-by-step process. And so, if your content is not aligned with that specific intent of like what are they looking for when they're doing that query, then like ranking is going to be almost impossible.
Definitely. I mean, and as you're going through the research part of refreshing an article, I use like a very simple list in notes, and I'm just typing out like, all right, this is for, this looks like it could be good for beginner's intent, and just do like a mind dump while you're doing your research. And then you can come back to that list. You're like, all right, I'm noticing videos in article number 1, article number 3, and article number 5. But in article number 2 and article number 3, they have a downloadable checklist, and like just start like kind of peeling through the SERP page and the top articles and pulling out the stuff that sticks out to you, and then you take that whole list of all the stuff that you're missing and you check it against your article. And then you're finding out like, oh, my article doesn't have good case studies. I need to find some case studies. Or, my article has poor format. There's no table of contents. There's no jump links inside of it. People can't access the article easily. Or get through it easily. So that's something that you also need to improve, like the UX of the article. And I know because we're talking about it, it sounds challenging, like just by hearing it, but you do it once, and then you do it twice, and then you do it 3 times, and I can guarantee you that you will have your own process and your own flow, and you're going to start seeing those search results because you're going to develop the you process for doing it. And you're going to figure out how, you take the foundation, just like I did with Jess's foundation, and you start finding how content refreshing works for you and the ways that you like to do it, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. So I want to jump into a couple questions. We've had some folks asking some questions in the chat here. So Bernard wants to know, how long do you expect to see results after refreshing content? Did I lose you? Uh-oh. Can you not hear me? Can folks in the audience, can you hear me?
Okay, you're back.
Oh, weird. Yeah, sorry. So Bernard was asking how long after refreshing content do you expect to see results?
Yeah, that's a great question. So often you can see small results in the first 28 days, but I would definitely leave like a 3-month window open to go back monthly and just check on those refreshed URLs that you're looking after, because you'll see a quick result. But for example, some of those keywords that may be like the 50s, 60,000s, it may take a little bit more time for that piece to get up there.
Yeah. Okay. And then like, is there sort of a cutoff where you say like, okay, like that's as far as it's going to move? How long do you kind of give it where you sort of think maybe it needs more work or some other step?
Yeah, again, a good question. It's hard to say because it really depends on like how long you want to give it. Like for example, I don't have a problem giving something like up to 6 months to see if it actually takes, which honestly has never been the case. You usually find between 28 days and 3 months, you'll start to see like the full results. But I would give it like a full 6 months, and then if it's still not working, it's like, all right, we messed up somewhere in there, so let's get back in there and figure out like what's happening. But if you're following your search rankings, say you see that first bump and then you start to see it come down again, that's just a sign of, it's time to hit it again.
Yeah. Okay. And that actually is another question I was going to ask is like, do you have sort of a recommended cycle for like how frequently content should be refreshed on like a regular basis?
Yeah, outside of those core kind of ways we discussed, declining rankings, page 2, snippet features, I would look at your content catalog every year and just be like, all right, like what needs to be refreshed? And sometimes those are a little easier to figure out. They take it takes some time. But if you do have, a huge backlog of content, it's going to be worth your while to kind of check yearly and just be like, all right, like, does this 2020 article need a 2021 update? And which articles have we lost a lot of traffic on this year that we can turn around and fix in the beginning of the year?
Yep, that makes sense. Cool. So I want to jump in here. So Jim is in the audience here. He's got a bunch of questions for us. So his first question, he started out, he says that they keep steadily losing organic traffic. They've been seeing a 5% drop month over month since December, even though they're published 2 new posts a week, and they're trying to stay on top of Decay. And they're wondering, he's wondering if you've ever seen this problem before, maybe any suggestions on what he might look at.
Yeah. Okay. So if we're looking at 5%, a 5% dip over, what was the time frame?
5% month over month.
Month over month.
December.
Okay, so the problem is we're not seeing like results from the content refreshing. I would imagine.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Oh, sorry, that's my dog barking.
No worries.
Yeah, so surprisingly enough, I have seen this in one case, and the case was, and I'm not exactly sure, Jim, how you guys go through your editorial, like creating the net new content, but sometimes like the velocity of publishing doesn't actually always equate to getting in the SERPs faster. I think that's actually a very common misconception that people think is like the more that we publish is like we're going to get there faster, but that's actually not very much the case. I would kind of like focus on like, all right, are we putting out 2 of the best like pieces of article? Are we putting out the best type of like content that we can put out twice a week? Because if not, I would rather focus on like one highly optimized piece a week per week, like put your resources into that versus like worrying about like how many URLs we're publishing. And then on staying on top of Decay, again, that's just in the similar vein of revisit that content. And because if it's not ranking, there's a reason, right? And it's part of the job of content refreshing to get in there and figure out like, is it a search intent thing? Is it a media that we have to add? Are we just not optimized? Is it poorly structured? So that's how I would kind of approach that. But I have seen that where people are publishing, up to 16 URLs per month plus, and they're still not seeing traffic. And that's because it doesn't always equate to traffic growth.
Yeah, the other thing that I was going to mention too is I wonder if because they're focused on like volume of content, possibly some cannibalization happening there.
Yeah, could totally happen. And that's what we had said, if you find old pieces of content that either need to go, or you can merge them with new pieces of content, that's a huge win. You could definitely be cannibalizing like with the new content that you're putting out. It's a good point, Tyler.
Yeah. Cool. So let's see a couple other questions here from the audience. Different Bernard, he's actually asking about kind of your business side. He wants to know if how you find clients, or do they find you, and what's your process for kind of working in this space?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So right now, where I'm getting clients is through referrals, just because I've spent a lot of time like building out my network on Twitter mostly, but I've spent a lot of time in that side. But for content refreshing in general, right? So the best way to upsell that, and this is what we tell like the writers that we work with in Peak Freelance, my freelance, Elise and I's freelance writing group, is upsell content refreshing into your clients that you're already working with. Because if they have an active editorial program, you're producing 1-2 pieces of content for them a week, per month, whatever. They have old content. So a great way to get in with them further is saying like, hey, I have this content refreshing process. These are some of the results that we can get. Why don't we run a trial on it? And one way that you can make put a number, attach a number to it, is do the research yourself. Like go on Ahrefs or whatever SEO tool that you're using, do a search of their entire blog folder, and then look at where they are on page 2, and then package that up and say like, look, like if I can get you here with this content refresh process that I have, you can be seeing like X amount more traffic. And then they have the number. They may have the numbers of like back of napkin math. Like this is how many leads that we get from this article. So you can say if you see this much more traffic, you can see this much more. You see this many more leads. So that's a really easy way to upsell content refreshing, especially if you're a service provider, because you're already working with them. It's that warm relationship, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So real quick, do you want to talk a little bit about Peak Freelance and why people should check it out?
Yeah, sure. I wasn't expecting this, but yeah, no, I love Peak Freelance. Yeah, so Peak Freelance is essentially, it's run by Elise Dobson, who I'd mentioned here. She's amazing at content. She does writing, refreshing, consulting, and she created it before me. And then she asked me to come on to help manage, as a managing partner, to work with the group. So Peak Freelance is a membership community of freelance writers and freelance writers because they're all content writers, but freelance writers from SaaS, health, fitness, and then our tag is like anyone that wants to scale from 250 a post to 1,000 a post. So we normally we work with like intermediate to more advanced writers who really want to take their freelance business to the next level. And then again, if someone is we don't like say no to people who are new, but we do have a course before that helps like new people get started also. But yeah, so with Peak Freelance, it's a membership community. You have 24/7 access because I never sleep. You have 24/7 access to Elise and I. We have monthly product drops. For example, the Content Refresh Handbook is in that group. And all the products are free of charge. They come with the membership fee, which is monthly, and that's £20 a month. And yeah, and then we have content in there that we've never released publicly. We have expert interviews with people like John Bonini, the lovely Tyler Hakes that you're staring at right now. Adam Rogers from Shopify, people from Tilt. Like we have expert interviews from everyone, and they share information on content, SEO. Bernard from ClearScope, he's also an expert. We have expert interview with him. So it's a really cool group. People come for support. They come for the love. They come for the products, and they stay because we help them make money.
That's what it is, right? It's an investment, yeah, for sure.
Again, right? We want traffic, we want leads, we want money. That's the goals, right? Like that's what everyone wants, whether you're a business or a consultant, doesn't matter. Business or provide a service provider.
For sure. One real final question, then I think you got some offers that we want to mention. The group here. I was gonna say real quick the final question, just so we can get to it real quick. They're asking if changing the meta description improves the ranking, or if that's a myth.
I'm so happy you asked this because I know we had the last tip and the last getaway thing. With a refresh, yeah, go for it and change the meta description. I usually just by standard, I switch it up just to refresh it. But when you are doing content refreshing, don't think that just changing the meta description or just changing a subheader or just changing a title tag is going to do the job. It'll most likely never do the job. If you're just changing a meta description or you're just like tweaking a subheader, because that's one way people do it. They say, I updated the content, it didn't work, but all they did was they went in and changed examples of affiliate marketing to affiliate marketing examples, and then they expected like a change. You have to treat old content like new content. Go in it from a fresh perspective. See how you can take that from shit to diamonds, and then that's where you're going to see the improvements. So that's my answer to that, and I'm glad we got to that because that was something that I meant to bring up too. Is it's a process. It's not a one and done. Go in, takes 2 seconds type thing.
Right. Awesome. Cool. Well, let's we're running out of time here, so let's put some of the offers that you wanted to mention here for folks on the stream with us today.
Yeah, for sure. And so just for y'all who joined us in this webinar, and then for everyone in the Top Funnel group, we are offering at Peak Freelance the Content Refreshing Handbook at 20% off its price. So if you sign up through this bit.ly link, and if for whatever reason you don't make it there, the code is Optimist, and that'll get you 20% off. That book walks through how the process of how I got 620 plus percent plus gains on content, and that's one piece of content, and there have been many more like that. So this handbook walks you through from start to finish how you can build out your own program for your organization, or how you can offer this as a service if you are a freelance writer or a consultant. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's going to be especially useful because, like we said, there's so many specific scenarios and specific considerations that are all going into this process, and trying to marry that into like a workflow that you could actually do. Like, I think you need a little bit more information about how to apply that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's the same thing. It's like, it's the foundation, and then you can build it up from there and do whatever the hell you want with it, and that's the beauty of it. Right,
for sure. And then, you also mentioned ClearScope, which is kind of your go-to tool, and I think you wanted to send folks there as well.
Yeah, that is my go-to tool. There's no like kickbacks or anything to it as of right. There's no like percentages off or anything. But it is. If I didn't use ClearScope, I don't think I would be sitting here with you today, because not only from like an optimization perspective, I've learned so much from Bernard about SEO, who's very hands-on with the tool. He'll talk to you for 2 hours about how to make your content better from an SEO perspective. And they're always working to improve the product. Again, like I said, they just released the research thing that cuts time in half, doing manual like analyzation and doing the manual work of analyzing a SERP page. So I stand by ClearScope. I recommend it to everyone. And again, like I wouldn't be here if ClearScope didn't give me the tools and like the support to kick off. So
very cool, man. Very cool. Yeah. Well, again, thanks so much for joining us, Michael. I think this was awesome. Getting lots of love in the comments here if you're not able to see it. So.
Thanks. I'm not, man. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you everyone who showed up. Thanks for lending me your time. This is I love doing this, and I'm happy to share. Hit me up on Twitter at Upmost Mike. Maybe Tyler can leave a description, link thing or whatever. But yeah, follow me there. Hit me up with questions. There you go. Perfect. And yeah, no, thank you so much for lending me your time. It was an honor to be here with you guys.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again. Just for a quick recap here. So if you guys are interested in the refresh handbook that Michael's got, you can find it here at this bit.ly link. If you want to check out ClearScope, you can use his link there as well. And one final plug for his group, Peak Freelance. And of course, you can find him there and get in touch with him if you have any questions or want to pick his brain more on refreshing content. Cool. Well, again, Mike, thanks so much, man. Really appreciate your time, and so glad we got to have this conversation. And we'll see you hanging out in top of the funnel, I think, right?
For sure. Thanks for having me, Tyler. Appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome, man. All right, cheers. Have a good day, and thanks all for joining.
You too. Ciao, guys and gals.
Bye.